So we got some breaking news from the White House. There has been a phone call between President Trump and President Xi of China. It lasted about an hour and a half, and apparently it was about trade and only trade. There was a post coming on Truth Social here, and I'll try and hit the highlights for you. Just concluded a very good phone call with Xi of China, discussing some of the intricacies of our recently made and agreed to trade deal. The call lasted approximately 1.5 hours, resulted in a very positive conclusion for both countries. There should no longer be any questions respecting the complexity of rare earth products. Our respective...
Good on Xi to finally pick up the call. I love that every fucking part of this administration is so bad, so grossly incompetent, so horrible. Like, there is not a single redeemable factor here.
Teams meeting shortly at a location to be determined. We will be represented by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, and Ambassador Jameson Greer. During the conversation, Xi graciously invited the First Lady and me to visit China, and I reciprocated. As presidents of two great nations, it's something that we both look forward to. The conversation was focused almost entirely on trade. Nothing discussed concerning Russia, Ukraine, or Iran. We'll inform the media as to scheduling, the location, and soon-to-be meeting. Thank you for your attention to this matter, which has been a way to conclude a lot of the Truth Social posts. Jackie, you're there every day.
Yeah.
She should give some pointers on how to deal with fucking unruly billionaires that are trying to forcibly take over the government, you know? You don't need the heavens mandate like Xi has to do what's right, to do what must be done, Trump.
What do you make of what we just heard?
Well, I think it's probably the news that everyone's looking for in terms of where things are headed with the trade talks after the president posted overnight the other night that he likes Xi, he's known him for a long time, but he's a really tough guy to make a deal with. So this sounds a lot more optimistic about the direction that the trade talks are going in. I do find it kind of interesting that he noted specifically that there was no discussion about Iran, Russia, and Ukraine.
How come?
Because China's going to be playing a role in, trying to figure out how to resolve some of those issues. And if they can work together, that'll be really important. Yeah, so
no doubt.
We'll see.
Just watching the markets, they've had a bit of a turnaround. Not too dramatic, but they have gone to green since this was posted. Just barely in the green, but it's green.
I'll take it.
To the latest on the war in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin says Russia will retaliate against Ukraine for its drone attack targeting air bases deep inside Russia. Our chief global affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz, is on the scene in Ukraine. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Michael. This morning here in Ukraine, Russia on the offense and promising further retaliation after Ukraine's bold attack on Russia's warplanes. Overnight, Russia launching a series of brutal strikes against Ukraine. Officials say over 100 Russian drones and a ballistic missile struck targets all over the country, leaving several people dead and dozens injured. Here you can see explosions across the southern city of Kherson. Ukrainian officials say Russia dropped 4 guided bombs in the center of the city, badly damaging its government buildings. The attacks come as new video shows Ukraine's astonishingly well-coordinated drone attack, known as Operation Spiderweb, that left Russia stunned and some of its warplanes in flames. U.S. officials saying a swarm of 100 drones hidden atop trucks and containers with retractable roofs descending on multiple airfields deep inside Russia. These satellite images show the aftermath, multiple nuclear-capable aircraft destroyed.
I think that it's very important now to start to speak with Russia in the languages of strength, because it's one language which this country understands.
Days following the extraordinary strike, another blow to Russia, Ukraine detonating bombs underneath the only bridge connecting Russia to occupied Crimea. Vladimir Putin in a call with President Trump vowing retaliation. President Trump posting, Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack. Ukraine is now braced for further attacks, prompting the U.S. Embassy here in Ukraine to warn citizens to seek out shelter locations and gather reserves of food, water, and medication.
Mr. President, So would you consider to put more sanctions on Russia? Because this discussion is going on now for weeks and months, and you tweeted about it once, but then nothing happens. So
Yeah, when I see the moment when
I can't get over how he's basically, what are you, fucking Lavrov, dude? Why are you the one who's like releasing communiques from the Russian president about when and how the retaliation will occur? Yeah, I saw JD Vance is hanging out with Theo Vaughn. Slow news day. What are we even going to talk about, Theo Vaughn?
I'm going to make a deal when this thing won't stop.
Is there a
If
deadline?
that moment, yeah, it's in my brain, the deadline. When I see the moment where it's not going to stop, and I'm sure you're going to do the same thing, will be very, very, very tough. And it could be on both countries, to be honest. You know, it takes two to tango. But we're going to be very tough. Whether it's Russia or anybody else, we're going to be very tough. That's a bloodbath that's going on over there. And when I see the moment where I say, well, they're going to just keep fighting. You know, I gave the analogy yesterday when I spoke to President Putin. I had a 2-hour and 15-minute call with him. Sometimes, and this is me speaking maybe in a negative sense, but sometimes you see two young children fighting like crazy. They hate each other and they're fighting in a park. And you try and pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes you...
Why is he talking like he's going to punish Ukraine? Did I misunderstand what he was saying? He's like, maybe on both sides. Ukraine needs a little bit of a punishment too. Sometimes you got to spank both children.
You're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart. And I gave that analogy to Putin yesterday. I said, President, maybe you're going to have to keep fighting and suffering a lot because both sides are suffering before you pull them apart, before they're able to be pulled apart. But it's a pretty known analogy. You have two kids, they fight. Sometimes you let them fight for a little while. You see it in hockey. You see it in sports. The referees let them go for a couple of seconds, let them go for a little while before you pull them apart. And maybe, and I said it, and maybe that's a negative because we're saying go, but a lot of bad blood. There's some bad blood between the two. I have to deal with it, and the chancellor has to deal with it. It's incredible. The level of, there's a great hatred between those two men, but between the warring parties, great hatred.
Absolutely, and I'm here, Mr. President, to talk with you later on.
I'm sorry, what is the title of this video? Germany's MERS responds when Trump says D-Day was not a pleasant day for you? Dude, stop. I don't care that Charlie is covering the Elon Musk drama. Why are you coming in here and being like, halt the presses? Moist Critical is covering politics again. Yeah, I know, because it's fucking insane.
On how we could contribute to that goal. And we all are looking for measures and for instruments to bring this terrible war to an end. And may I remind you that we are having June 6th tomorrow. This is D-Day anniversary, when the Americans once ended a war in Europe. And I think this is in your hand in specific, in ours.
That was not a pleasant day for you?
No, that was not a pleasant.
This was not a great
in
day.
the long run.
He said, that's not a pleasant day, D-Day. We really stuck it to you.
Pleasant day for you?
No, that was not a pleasant.
This was not a great
in the
day.
long run, Mr. President, this was the liberation of my country from Nazi dictatorship.
That's true. That's true.
And we know what we owe you. But this is the reason why I'm saying that America is again in a very strong position to do something.
God damn it, dude. Have some fucking respect, dude. God, what a schmuck. Yeah, thank God America invaded Germany, which technically D-Day isn't even Germany, but whatever. Thank God. What about the USSR, man? Maybe that's what he means. He's like, thank God you guys invaded and you guys came in from the fucking western flank. Otherwise those Russians would have killed everyone.
On this war and ending this war. So let's talk about what we can do jointly, and we are ready to do what we can. And you know that we gave support to Ukraine, and that we are looking for more pressure on Russia. The European Union did, and we should talk about that.
We will talk about it. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's good timing. The numbers for our country are through the roof, the economic numbers, because
Are there German chatters in here? I want to hear something from you. We've seen a lot of world leaders come and genuflect to Trump. Do you think less of your leadership when you see them have to take a knee and just basically suck Trump's dick when they all know he is a fucking buffoon? Like, what's the attitude in general from other countries? Like, I can't get a good read on this. Are you guys, Merz is a wannabe Trump, so no surprises. No, I just like with the South Africans, like they were talking about how their leadership did like a decent job, all things considered. But that's South Africa, right? Like very different circumstance for South Africa. But if you're like Germany or if you're France or even the UK, like you have probably a different attitude about your own sovereignty, right? Where I feel like imagine getting big dicked by a guy who you know is dumber than you and is like making ridiculous demands of you, and you just kind of have to nod along and give in to everything that they're asking for. You mean every single employee ever? I know. It is like every single employee ever, except these guys are not, like Trump is not their boss. They're supposed to be established. They're supposed to be like individual established states with a much longer history than the United States of America, for example. He does not treat these world leaders as peers, but simply like servile little piggies. Okay, not Germany, whatever. I'm not talking about just Germany, man. Like there were people there for thousands of fucking years. There were barbarics. There were the Barbaran. Like there were tribal people that fucking fought against the goddamn Roman incursions. You know what I mean? I just don't understand how you got all of that in your history and you're just like talking to a guy who's also fucking German himself, like of German origin. And he just treats people like Xi with so much more respect and so much more reverence, which is understandable. That's worthwhile. But then he doesn't offer that same decency to you or your leaders. I guess the question I'm asking is, doesn't that make you realize that America kind of dominates the entire planet? Like it destroys the notion of like parity among nation states or even sovereignty that other countries have. Like do you recognize the vassal status that you occupy as a European country? Do your neighbors, do your parents, like, do they see that? See, there's even chatters right now that go, vassal status, ha ha ha, that is not real. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that to like dunk on European states. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that to make fun of you. I'm simply saying that because like on the one hand, European leadership believes and abides by supposedly this proud tradition of liberal democracy. But then they come face this fucking tyrant and they literally they're so cucked, like they can't even fake it. At least previous administrations engaged in diplomacy and made it seem as though they weren't vassals. We have been able to dupe everyone around the world into believing that they have a say in this process and they're not just simply servants of America. With the exception of countries that America dominates and punishes for not being servants of America. And obviously, when you look at that deal, with only exceptions like China, which I guess technically were servants of capital for a decent period of time, most of the countries that are not servile to American interests get dominated and punished with ruthless force. And I guess my question is like, does that not make people feel a different type of way about America at all? Am I crazy?
because of the election and because of tariffs and other things, a lot of things. But we've had some of the best.
Yeah, it sucks. Move on. Felt bad as a Norwegian Thor meeting. Didn't go over too bad. Fragile ass liberal chatter. He is asking, isn't it fucked up? Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it's fucked up. I guess I'm trying to figure out if like people will understand it, or are people close to understanding it, at least from your from your neighbors and from the people that you talk to? Like, do they see it at all? Or are they, like, that's my question. Do they see it at all? Or are they completely and utterly oblivious and think like, no, you don't understand. Like, you just got to pay the piper a little bit. You just got to entertain him a little bit. But ultimately, we are sovereign. Because when America says you have to spend 4% to 5% of your GDP on weapons, and every single one of these countries has to jump after America said jump, remember, like, that's coming out of your pockets, okay? That's your output. That's your taxable revenue. That is, instead of going back to like social safety nets, that's going to American weapons. You know? Isn't that fucked up? Like, Europeans look to America and say, oh, these guys are so stupid. They don't even have health care. What are they doing? It's so barbaric, yeah. And not realize that, like, we got here because domestically, we did the thing that we're making you do now. Okay? Now we're making you do it. And you're a whole ass different country. You know what I mean? Like, you're a sovereign nation, dude. It's so fucked up. Stop the bullying. Time out the hate. Okay? Time out the hate. You know, stop the hate. That's not what I'm not hating on everybody. I'm just saying, like, before this gets out of hand, you gotta fucking, I don't know, you gotta wake up. You gotta wake your neighbors up. Because if they don't, they're gonna keep on hating on fucking immigrants and shit, not realizing where it's coming from, not realizing where the austerity is coming from, not realizing why their living standards have gotten significantly and noticeably worse in the last couple of years.
Best numbers we've ever had. They were reported yesterday, the day before, and even today. Country's doing really well. I think that one of the things you'll be most interested in is that 6 months ago, we were having a hard time getting anybody to join our military. I mean, they just couldn't do it. The numbers were record low. We couldn't get people to join the military. It wasn't me. This was before I got there, the past administration. But 6 months ago, a year ago, the numbers were record low. You couldn't get them to join. That included the police. And you couldn't get them to join. Now, we just hit the highest number in the history of our country, we think, but very close, but the highest in the history of our country, recruitment, joining the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, police forces all over the country.
What did you do for that? What was the reason?
Spirit. They love our country again. They do the same thing. Spirit.
Merce is like, what did you do? I would like to do the same, yeah. We need the armed forces now. Now that we are militarizing at an alarming rate, yeah, we need the armed forces as well. How did you do it? Well, you know, behind closed doors, maybe he'll tell you the truth. I don't even fucking know if Trump knows that this is the truth. But any intelligent person knows exactly why it happens. As material conditions worsen, the poverty draft as an opportunity to get all of the amenities that Germany offers unconditionally to all of its fucking citizens. The only way to access said amenities is if you know, join the goddamn military. That's it. Do more austerity, which is going to happen anyway, so you can fucking pay for the weapons that we're forcing you to buy. And then in the process of that austerity, so like all of the social safety nets that people took for granted go away. And then because it's something you have to pay for, do military service. Do military service.
We have great spirit is back in our country, and it's very simple. You know, it was only, Susie, 6 months ago, right, that you got reports. You're the one that released them, that you couldn't get anybody to join the military, and now we're stocked. Every service now is packed, and we have waiting lists of people trying to get in, as good as we've ever had in the history of our country. So that's an honor. That's a great honor.
Mr. President, on the war.
You've asked. You've had enough.